So I'm here with Sammy Bellin, who's a senior at Juniata College in the history department, and we're going to talk about Sammy's summer internship at the East Broad Top Railroad, a National Historic Site and historic narrow gauge railroad.
Yeah.
So, Sammy, tell us about what you did at East Broad Top.
So during my internship at the East Broad Top, I essentially worked in the new archives department. So East Broad Top is very, very old and has tons of history. However, and also a great thing about the East Broad Top is that history has been kept for a very, very long time, close to 150 years. All of the paper documents were kept in 3 very large vaults stored at the station. However, none of those vaults were ever really gone through at any point. They were kind of just stored there. And so about a year ago, one of the members of the East Broad Top, Lawrence B. Miller, was thinking about setting up an archives department to go through all of these records so that we could see what we had there, because there's so many great and interesting artifacts really kept over in the archives. So together with me and my boss, Julie Rockwell, who is actually kind of an expert at archival management, essentially went through all 3 of those large vaults at the East Broad Top. And we started getting essentially a very quick spot inventory of what was in the archives. And that took about 3 months because there were hundreds of thousands of documents in those archives.
So I know one way to measure the size of an archive is a term that they use, linear feet.
Yes.
Were you able to get an approximate linear feet measurement?
I believe it was something about like 5,000 square linear feet, something to that extent. We had our one of our engineers actually measured all 3 of the vaults and was able to come up with a good estimate for what we had. The vaults also include several large storage bins and file cabinets just filled with all sorts of paper documents, all sorts of tax records, maps. We've got all sorts of things in there. Anything that you can kind of pertain to both a railroad and just a business in general is really just stored in the station.
So when you think about what your expectations were going into this internship, and then what your actual experiences were like, what would you say to describe that?
My expectations going into this internship were wildly off. I didn't know what to expect. I'd never really been to a real like old time train station like this before. I had no idea what to expect. But I went in with an open mind, very excited, and I was super excited the first day I got to go in, really see what was in all of the vaults, and I kind of looked at it and was like, wow, I'm really home, because there's so much history stored within everything. I just wanted to go through it all and read as much of it as I could. So I'd say, yeah, my expectations were kind of non-existent. I didn't know what to expect, but I was just thrilled whenever I saw everything that was going to have to be done.
Well, so if we turn it into a sort of different kind of question, maybe now that you have completed that internship, I know you continue to have some involvement with the railroad still, but what kinds of things would you say you gained from the experience?
I think I gained all sorts of things, honestly. I think I gained a lot of, first of all, archiving experience. I did not go in with any sort of archiving experience. My boss, Julie Rockwell, really helped me. She's very patient and really taught me on the fly, because I had no idea what to expect. But I learned a lot about just how to archive things. Mm-hmm. But I also learned all sorts of really more historical, like a lot of historical analysis needed to be done, because I was going in kind of blind sometimes. A lot of the documents didn't have identifiers on them. I had to read through them and be able to analyze these primary sources and to kind of understand. So I learned a lot of how to do that analysis on my own, but also how to ask others who were experts, because there are a lot of people related to the train station who are far more experienced in train-related matters than I was, and they really were able to help me out and give me a good understanding of what I was able to learn and really analyze at the railroad.
That's awesome. I think a slightly different question, but also related to that. Do you think you came away with a different understanding about, that particular slice of history, that history of, second wave industrial revolution and the role the railroad played in that history, and even the role the railroad played here in a place like Pennsylvania.
Oh, absolutely. I learned, we don't really think about railroads as much anymore. They're obviously still around, but we think of them in a far different context. But yes, I learned so much more about, that real second industrial wave. Railroads were just vital to the region. Without railroads, that region probably would not have been able to survive, essentially, or even prosper as it did. The railroads were just vital. And I really learned a lot about everything that they brought to the community, but also some of the negative things that we don't really experience, we don't see as much. But on a more personal level, I learned a lot about how workers really reacted to it, because the railroad at one level did a lot for the community, but the railroad was also sometimes hurting the community as well. So I learned kind of the positive, the great history about it first, but then diving deeper, you learn more of the negative, and it kind of rounded out my full historical understanding of what the railroad did.